Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to talk more about how to build chords and why not to learn chords off of chord charts. For the explanation of the second part, that's in the previous video, so look back. But the point is that there are so many chords and inversions and types of chords that it's virtually impossible to memorize every single one. And anyone with a wide variety of chord voicings is not memorizing every single voicing. They're forming it based off of like a parent chord voicing, or they're just putting them together based off of fretboard knowledge. So the way we're going to be doing this today is just by starting with a major chord and changing it note by note to add in different chord tones. And I wanted to explain a little bit about some basics of like if it's a minor chord, what do we do and things like that. And it won't take very long. We'll get to the actual upper extensions in just a minute. So let's do this in B flat. It could be any key, it doesn't matter. B flat's just a key we use a lot in jazz. I'm going to use this major chord. So it's 8, 7, 6, 6. If this is an unfamiliar chord, then you might want to come back to this later because we're going to be doing, a lot of different things based on this chord. It's just a, it's the same voicing as the first F chord that most people learn down here. So in this chord we have root, third, fifth, root. The first thing we're going to do is just make the various kinds of seventh chords in case you don't know how to do that already. So the first thing is for a major seventh chord, we add a major seventh into the chord. And the major seventh is the one that is taken from a major scale. It's down a half step from the root. So we could take this and lower the bottom note down a half step, and then we have our seventh and keep the rest the same. And this is fine, we like using this, I personally like using this chord a lot, but the seventh in the bass is going to give more of an unsettled dissonant sound. That's great, we can use that, but let's put it on top instead for our purposes. So the root that's up here, we're going to drop that down a fret instead to the seventh and keep all the other notes the same. You probably already know this voicing. That's our major seventh chord. Now to make it a dominant seventh chord, the seventh has to be a flat seventh, and that means that this seventh has to go back one more fret. And now we have a root inversion dominant seventh chord. The next one in our series here of chords is the minor seventh chord. Any chord that has a minor in the name has a flat third. That might be getting confused sometimes with minor referring to intervals, like a minor second or a minor seventh. That is referring to intervals, but any chord that has minor in the name, the third is always flat. So now we're going to take our seventh chord and just lower the third. The third is on the third string. We're going to lower that a fret, and now we have a root inversion minor seventh chord. Now already this is getting possibly far enough away from this major chord that you might not have already recognized that this is related to this same chord. And this is based on an E shape, by the way, if we bring this down all the way. This is just based off of the top four strings of an E chord. It doesn't really matter for this. We could do this process with any chord voicing, starting with a major chord. This might also be kind of uncomfortable for you. We get used to these stretches. There are physical limitations. We do what we can and we reach what we can. And I'll get into some of those things, like if I can't reach a chord, maybe some solutions to that. So from the minor seventh chord, then we have minor 7 flat 5. So we're going to take the fifth, which is underneath my third finger on the second string. We're going to lower that a half step to make a flat 5, and we get this. Now the last one in the progression of these normal chords is a fully diminished seventh chord. The minor 7 flat 5 chord, by the way, this one is also called a half diminished chord. The fully diminished seventh chord lowers the seventh another half step. It makes it a double flat seventh. So this is going to go back one more fret, and this might be the limit right now of how far we can reach. For me on a 25.5 scale instrument down here, I can't really get any further than a, what is this, 1, 2, 3, 4, a 6 fret spread. Up here I might be able to, but really 6 frets, if you can reach that, that's great. If you have big hands, like if you're Tal Farlow or something, then by all means, stretch away. Those chords are awesome, but I can't reach them personally. But there's ways to work around that. So those are all of the starting chords. We had a major chord. We lowered the seventh to make a major seventh chord. Sorry, we lowered the root down to a seventh to make a major seventh chord. We lowered the seventh another fret down to a flat 7 to make a dominant seventh, or just a 7 chord. We lowered the third a half step to make minor 7th. We lowered the 5th of that a half step to make minor 7 flat 5 or half diminished, and we lowered the 7th down another half step to a double flat 7th for a fully diminished 7th chord. Now, those are just the basic chords, and that gets pretty far away from this starting B flat major chord. So if you're unfamiliar with those, grab what you can. Just as a quick example, if you can't reach, like let's use the fully diminished 7th chord, if you can't reach this, then just drop out the root and just play these 3 strings and refinger it like this. Sorry, yeah. So, you know, reach what you can. If there's a bass player, you don't need that root anyway. And even if there's not a bass player, you know, we don't need the root all the time. So now let's get into some upper extensions. Let's start with the major 7th chord again. And let's just add some chord tones. Let me just randomly choose some. Let's do a sharp 5. No, let's do a flat 5 first. We talked about last video about flat 5 being the same as sharp 11 in terms of the pitch that's added to the chord. And if you'd like an explanation of why they're different and all of that, you can look back to the previous video. So we know from the last video that the flat 5 and the sharp 11 is the same as a sharp 4, that we're going to take this 5th and lower it down a half step. And now we have a 7 sharp 11 chord or a 7 flat 5 chord. Let's say we wanted a sharp 5. Sharp 5 would also be an augmented chord. If you see C major augmented 7, it would usually be C7 augmented. Not often major, but let's just say it is. Then we start with our same major 7th chord, take the 5th, raise it a half step, and we get this what would be a C major 7 sharp 5. Anytime the 5th is sharp, you can also call it augmented. It's the same as if the 5th is flat, that it makes it diminished triad as long as it's also a minor chord. So those are our 5ths. Now let's say we want the probably more common one for the sharp 5, which is a dominant 7th. We'd start with our dominant 7th voicing here and raise the 5th again. And now we're getting into some possibly uncomfortable voicing territory here. So we have to think, like, what can we do with this to make this possible? I mean, it's possible, but maybe it's not if your fingers are not able to reach it, or, you know, various circumstances. So we'll go back to our dominant 7th chord and think about, how can I add this sharp 5? Well, if I add it here, I could do it just take the B flat major chord and then raise the 5th up like this, but then it's just an augmented chord. We don't have the 7th in the chord. So starting back with the major chord again, we can think, well, maybe I can't add my 7th up here because that's where the stretch is. And we can take our first option that we take with the major 7th, lower the root on the bottom of the chord, lower that down to the flat 7th. So that's down 1 fret to the major 7th, 2 frets down for a flat 7th, and keep all the other notes the same first of all. And we get this, I'm just barring 6, 6, 7, 6, 6. And now add our sharp 5th. And there's a nice voicing with a sharp 5 in it. And the 7th is in the root, but really, especially if it's a fast tune or something, this is going to be a lot quicker to reach for a lot of people compared to that. I mean, this isn't that bad, but you get the point. Let's also keep adding some more things to the bass note of the chord. So back to our, let's say, major 7th chord. Maybe we want a major 9th. I want to give an example of something that would be too far to reach and how to deal with that. So the 9th here, we only have a few options. So we know based on our starting chord, our B flat major, that this top note could go up a whole step to the 9th. We talked about last video, the 9th is the same pitch as the 2nd, right? So the root would just go up to the 2nd or up to the 9th. Then we're left with this, and that is, there's no 7th in the chord, so this is like an add 9 chord. So not quite what we're looking for. Unless you like the sound of it, by all means use it. So then we could take the root on the bottom, lower that down to a major 7th, and we get this. That could certainly work. If you're playing solo guitar, we're kind of losing the root there, so we might want to get something that still has the root, or at least something that doesn't have the 7th in the bass. So then, well, if we can't put the 9th up on the first string, maybe we can put it on the bottom string. So getting back to our major 7th chord, this is not something I'm ever going to be able to grab unless I really have time to stretch it. It's just beyond the capabilities of how my fingers stretch, and that's after like, hell, I don't even know, 25 years of playing or something. My fingers aren't going to stretch any further than they're able to now. So what we have to do is drop a string, and drop the string with the furthest stretch. So the frets here were this, and then this note. This was not too bad, but one more fret, and that's beyond my stretch capabilities. So what we could do then is think, well, this is the note that's furthest away from the bottom note that I want to add. So we're going to take these and refinger them, and then put the fourth finger on the note we were trying to reach. Now this is an add 9 chord. This is an add 9 chord again because we lost the 7th. So we could do that. I like the sound of that. We could even put the root up on the top again. So this was the same as our starting chord now, but with the bottom note raised up to the 9th. And that's a nice chord, but we're losing the sound of the 7th that would make this truly a major 9th chord. So we have to think, well, where can we add the 7th? We're not going to add it here because we found that was a little bit too far away. So we have to think, what's the other closest note to the 7th? Where else could we find the major 7th? And from knowing our major scale formula that we talked about in previous videos, we have whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. From the 5th here, if we go up a whole step, then we hit the 6th, and up another whole step is the 7th. So now, maybe we can include that into the chord. We'd lose the 5th, but that's a pretty inconsequential note. So we'd have the 9th, the 3rd, and the 7th. And that's also a nice voicing. It's not good for all circumstances. This is also a little bit too far to get the root like that. It's a cool chord. I could probably grab it if I had a little bit of time. And then another option would be, let's go back to this again, think, well, where else could I put the 9th? This one. We know the 3rd is here, and the 9th is the 2nd, same pitch, so we could drop the 3rd down to down a whole step, down to the 9th, keep all the other notes here the same. We'll drop this down, becomes part of the bar, and oh, there's my chord. So it's like that process of elimination where you're going to find several voicings that you'll be able to use. And the more you do this, the shorter the amount of time it will be. You'll be able to look at the fretboard or visualize it in your head and just be able to do that without that process. I think for most people, there's always some time in our practice where we're sitting at home and actually working through that process in our head because, it's good to know as many voicings as possible. And without discovering them ourselves, we're back to learning off chord charts. I should make the quick kind of side note that chord charts are a way for guitarists to communicate voicings to one another. When you get a book like Chord Chemistry, the Ted Green book, and it's just chock full of these amazing chords that he was able to do, many wider than most people can reach at all, then yeah, he's gone. That's the only way to communicate these voicings. So it's not like we should never be using them. They're just a tool. But to form them yourself will help your ear because you're changing these chord tones with your ear and the fretboard. It's helping your fretboard knowledge by extension, and it's making your brain adaptable to be able to change these voicings on the fly, to be able to change them and adjust them under your fingers instead of just memorizing these patterns. That probably about covers it. Maybe we should do another couple examples here. What else would be good? How about chords with 2 extensions or 2 altered notes? So let's say we want sharp 5, sharp 9. So back to our major chord. We know it's dominant, so I should have said the full name. So let's say it's B flat 7, sharp 5, sharp 9. Or it just says B flat 7 alt, and you say to yourself, I want to play the sharp 5 and the sharp 9. So from here, we're in trouble already, because we can get the sharp 5th here, but already that one is a little bit sketchy. I could probably get it easy enough if I needed to, but then we're out of room. There's no sharp 9 able to be added here. We could replace the 3rd of the chord and lower it a half step to go down to the sharp 9. The sharp 9 is the same pitch of a flat 3rd, and we would get this. But that doesn't sound like a 7 sharp 9 chord because a sharp 9 needs to have the 3rd in the chord and the sharp 9. That's what distinguishes the sound from just a minor chord. So that we get the pitches there, and in some contexts that might work. But it doesn't sound like, you know, by itself, it's a nice sounding chord, but it doesn't have the quality of a sharp 5, sharp 9 chord. So we have to rethink this. The 7th isn't going to work up here. We need someplace else to put it. Let's put it on the bottom like we had before. So the root is going to drop down 2 half steps for a flat 7th. And let's keep the other notes the same for right now. So we started with this, and now we get this again, 6, 7, 6, 6. Now we can get the sharp 5 here and raise the 5th. And that's a nice sharp 5 voicing. And now, where can we put the sharp 9? Well, we have a root up here, and we can go root, here's the 2nd, here's the sharp 2, which is the same as sharp 9. There's the sharp 9 voicing. Add both sharp 5 and sharp 9, and we get this chord. And this is a nice chord also, just to mention that you hear often going to the flat 9 right afterwards, because if you finger it like this with the bar here, then the flat 9 is right underneath the 2nd finger. We hear this often going like so that would be an example of how to form that chord without having to just get it off of a chord chart. I think that'll pretty much cover it. It's already getting kind of longer than I had wanted to. I just wanted to illustrate some other chords starting from a major chord this time with a different voicing than before, and also show some cases where you're not going to be able to reach the chords that you're looking for and how to deal with that. So I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, let me know as always. If you like this content, please subscribe, and have a good time practicing. Have a good night and good day wherever you are, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.